There is a certain frequency of feminine power that refuses to shrink itself to be loved. It's an unshakable center, a quiet sovereignty that doesn't audition for attention, doesn't campaign for approval, and will not trade its own perception for peace. What separates a woman rooted in this power from one who merely hopes to be seen as powerful? The answer isn't in what she gives, it's in what she will not, under any circumstances, allow. Over the next few minutes, we're not just going to list rules, we're going to unlock 5 portals of self-reclamation. These are the 5 sacred boundaries a woman with true queen energy will never cross for anyone. These insights are not rules, they are mirrors for your own inner truth. They will show you exactly where you may have unconsciously laid down your crown. And they will remind you of something your soul has always known. Your dignity is not a negotiation. Carl Jung called the journey to becoming who you truly are individuation. For a woman, this is often a sacred process of unbecoming, unlearning generations of self-sacrifice and coded self-abandonment. It's the realization that true love never, ever demands the annihilation of the self. What you are about to hear might feel uncomfortable. It might press against layers of conditioning so deep you mistook them for your own personality. But right there, in that resonance of discomfort, is where the return to your inner throne begins. Let's be clear, this journey of unbecoming is a countercultural act. Society is built on the compliance of women. We are praised for being accommodating, flexible, and selfless. This conditioning isn't just in our minds. It's in our media, our families, and our workplaces. To choose your own individuation is to go against this powerful current. It's an act of quiet rebellion, and it requires you to be willing to be misunderstood by those who benefit from your smallness. The first truth of this energy is perhaps the most challenging. A queen will never auction her perception to maintain a false peace. How many times have you felt that knot in your throat when every cell in your body wanted to scream, "No, that's not right"? How often have you blurred your own boundaries, gaslit your own intuition, or swallowed your voice just to keep the waters calm? This false harmony is one of the most subtle forms of self-betrayal. Jung identified a dangerous distortion of the maternal archetype. When it's not integrated, a woman can become a compulsive peacemaker, the hostage negotiator of her relationships. She believes her job is to manage everyone's feelings, smooth every tension, and make space for everyone but herself. This pattern has ancient roots. Generations of women were taught that their truth was dangerous. Their voice was too loud. Their perception was too sharp. Their needs were too much. So they learned to laminate themselves, to fit in, to doubt their own senses, to minimize their feelings, to hide their needs. They became experts at betraying themselves so as not to upset others. But here is the paradox. Every single time you swallow your truth to avoid angering or losing a man, you lose a piece of yourself. You create an internal chasm between what you feel and what you show. Your nervous system registers that betrayal. Your soul feels the fragmentation. This self-betrayal isn't just a psychological concept, it's a somatic event. Your body keeps the score. That knot in your throat is unexpressed truth. The tension in your shoulders is the weight of unspoken boundaries. The chronic fatigue is the exhaustion of performing a self that isn't real. A queen understands that her body is a compass. When she silences her truth to keep a false peace, she is declaring war on her own nervous system. Reclaiming her voice is not just an emotional act, it's a physical necessity. A queen understands something fundamental. True intimacy is not born from self-erasure. It is born from authentic presence. She does not ask for permission to exist. She doesn't over-explain her boundaries. She doesn't apologize for having her own reality. When she speaks from her center. When she is silent, it is a choice, not a prison of fear. Can you feel the difference? Between a silence born of terror and a silence born of sovereignty? between words that beg for agreement and words that simply are because they are true. The question isn't whether you have the right to speak your truth. The question is, why did you ever believe you needed permission in the first place? That belief is not yours. It was installed. A queen knows the difference between her own beliefs and the ones she inherited. She audits her inner world. She sets herself free. She speaks. In depth psychology, we talk about collective patterns passed down through generations. These patterns live in your cells, in your automatic reactions, in what you take for granted. A queen begins to see these patterns. She asks, is this my fear or the fear of my mother, my grandmother, and all the women before me who were not allowed to have a voice? This distinction is power. It allows you to set down baggage that was never yours to carry. It gives you the freedom to choose again. The second principle of queen energy reveals an even deeper truth. A queen refuses to be the unpaid emotional tutor for a grown man. This is perhaps one of the most insidious traps in modern relationships. You might know this pattern. You find yourself explaining why his behavior was hurtful. You name emotions that should be obvious. You are teaching him empathy 101. You manage his feelings, interpret his reactions, and make excuses for his immature behavior to yourself and others. Slowly, imperceptibly, you stop being his partner. You become his emotional mother. Jung warned of this dangerous blurring of the mother and partner archetypes. When a woman takes on the role of emotional educator for an adult man, a toxic dynamic is born. She infantilizes him, and in the process, she exhausts herself. This distortion often comes from an unconscious complex many women carry: the Pygmalion project, or the savior complex. It's the belief that your love, your patience, your devotion can sculpt an unformed man into a better one, that you can awaken him, heal him, or mature him if you just give enough. But here is the hard truth. Every human being is on their own journey of individuation. Jung described this as a profoundly personal process. No one can do it for someone else. A queen understands this in her bones. She sees an emotionally immature man and she does not ask, how can I change him? She asks, do I want to be in partnership with someone who is as he is right now? The distinction is critical. She does not rescue, she chooses. Think of the hours you have spent explaining his own feelings to him, the energy you have invested in teaching him what an adult man should already be working on. That energy belongs to you. It is precious. It is life force. And a queen does not waste it on someone who refuses to do their own inner work. She observes, she recognizes, and if necessary, she walks away. There is a vast difference between supporting a partner who is on his own path and doing the emotional labor for him. A queen supports a man who is already doing his work. She will not become the translator, the therapist, or the emotional manager for a man who takes no responsibility for his own inner world. She knows, if she is thinking, feeling, and growing for both of them, the relationship isn't growing. She is simply carrying the weight of two people on her own. The third revelation goes even deeper. A queen does not audition for a role that is already hers. She never competes for attention or proves her worth. Somewhere in the collective female soul there is an ancient wound. It is the wound of invisibility. Generations of women learned that they had to earn their right to exist, through beauty, through utility, through submission, through constant performance. This wound creates an inner desperation, the belief that you are only valuable if you are seen, chosen, and validated. Jung spoke of the shadow, all the parts of ourselves we deny and reject. For many women, the most painful shadow is their desperate, hidden longing for male validation. This longing disguises itself as a desire for connection, or even as love. But in truth, it is a deep inner void projected outward. It is the absence of self-worth, camouflaged as a need for recognition. If you find yourself competing for attention, playing the pick-me game, posting a picture to see if he'll like it, or subtly tearing down another woman, you have laid down your crown. If you find yourself shrinking, dimming your light so his ego feels bigger, or performing a version of yourself so he will finally notice you, you have forgotten who you are. A queen does not enter a competition for something that should be freely given. She does not contort herself to be noticed. She does not play the role she was assigned just to get a seat at a table she doesn't even want to be at. Do you see the tragedy in this? The moment you have to prove you are worthy of being loved, you have already accepted the premise that your worth is in question. A queen does not accept this premise. She exists in her fullness, not with arrogance, not with aloofness, but simply present in her own essence. She doesn't shine to get attention. She shines because that is her nature. This shift from external validation to internal validation is the great alchemy of the queen. She stops asking, "Do they see me?" and starts affirming, "I see myself." She learns to be her own most profound witness. She celebrates her own wins, comforts her own sorrows, and champions her own growth. When you become the primary source of your own approval, the approval of others becomes a pleasant bonus, not a desperate necessity. This is where true confidence is born, not from being chosen, but from choosing yourself first, last, and always. There is a quiet dignity in the woman who is no longer fighting for her own visibility and who understands that true presence has nothing to do with external validation, who has learned to rest in her own inner approval. This is not indifference. This is freedom. And now the fourth truth is revealed. A queen refuses to be the sole emotional architect, janitor, and superintendent of a relationship. In so many partnerships, an invisible but brutal asymmetry exists. One person feels for two, thinks for two, cares for two, remembers for two, initiates for two. The other person is merely an occupant in the structure. In Jungian terms, this would be described as an unintegrated projection of the anima. The man outsources his entire emotional feeling life onto the woman, and then believes it's her job to manage that inner world for both of them. Do you recognize this exhaustion? The exhaustion of being the only one who remembers the important dates, the only one who initiates conversations about the relationship, the only one who brings up problems, the only one who nurtures the connection, the only one who constantly checks the emotional temperature. That is not a partnership. That is emotional management with a roommate. You are not alone, but you feel profoundly isolated because you are doing all the emotional work yourself. There is a cultural myth that justifies this asymmetry, the idea that women are just naturally better at feelings. This narrative served one purpose: to overburden women with all the relational labor while absolving men of it. A queen sees through this convenient lie. She understands. Emotional intelligence is not a native female trait. It is a human skill that can and must be developed by every adult. True reciprocity looks completely different. In a mature relationship, both people feed the connection. Both people notice when things are off. Both people initiate closeness. Both people contribute to the emotional depth. A queen watches closely. Who is nourishing this connection alongside me? Who is giving back? Who is carrying this with me? And when she realizes she is the only one building while the other person is just consuming, she knows what she has to do. This realization can be painful. You might have spent years keeping the relationship alive. You might have told yourself this was love. But love does not systematically exhaust only one person. Love is a current that flows in both directions. A queen understands the difference between a river and a one-way drain. She stays where energy is exchanged, not where it is extracted. The fifth and perhaps most profound truth is this: A queen will never stay in a room that requires her to be a smaller, edited, or more convenient version of herself. Jung described individuation as the process of becoming your full self, embodying your true, unfiltered, whole nature. A queen understands on a cellular level that to stay in a relationship that demands she fragment herself is a betrayal of her soul's deepest calling. It is a rejection of her own becoming. Here lies a tragic confusion. Many women mistake loyalty for self-destruction. They believe that staying, enduring, and tolerating are signs of strength or love. Especially women with a deep abandonment wound tend to cling to corrosive connections. They are afraid of giving up, afraid of failing, afraid of being alone, but they don't notice. They are giving themselves up. They are failing their own truth. They are already alone, even with someone lying next to them. A queen does not make a dramatic exit. She doesn't need the loud scenes, the accusing monologues, the cathartic confrontations. She simply recognizes when an energy is no longer in alignment with her truth. She feels when a space has become too small for her growth, and then she leaves. Not from anger, not from revenge, but from a quiet dignity that values her own integrity more than any connection. Understand this. There are relationships that will cost you you. They demand you be quieter, smaller, more agreeable, that you tame your wildness, moderate your truth, and veil your power. They only want parts of you, the convenient parts, the easy parts, the non-threatening parts. A queen does not offer an edited version of herself. She is all or nothing. The greatest terror for many women is the idea of being alone, but the queen has discovered a secret. Conscious solitude is infinitely more nourishing than company that demands your self-annihilation. Solitude is not the same as abandonment. Solitude is sacred. It is the space where you return to yourself, where you find your own voice again, where you remember who you are when no one is watching. A queen chooses wholeness, even if it means walking alone. She understands. It is better to be alone and whole than to be partnered and in pieces. She is not afraid of her own company. She is not afraid of the silence. She is not afraid of meeting herself because she knows the relationship with herself is the only one that is guaranteed to last a lifetime. Perhaps you are asking yourself now, am I a queen? And the answer is both simple and profound. You are not a queen because someone crowned you. You are not a queen because you perform a certain role. You become the queen by stopping all the things a queen would never do. By no longer trading your truth for peace, by no longer mothering adult men, by ceasing to audition for your own worth, by refusing to carry the emotional load alone, and by leaving any space that asks you to shrink. Queen energy is not a quality you acquire. It is a remembering of what you always were, before the world taught you to be small, before you learned to adapt, before you believed you had to earn your place. Your inner throne has always been there. You just forgot. Every boundary you set with dignity is a step back toward that throne. Every truth you speak without fear is a reclamation of your sovereignty. Every time you walk away from a space that does not honor you, you are crowning yourself anew. Jung said that individuation means becoming what you, in your core, already are. For a woman, this often means liberating herself from centuries of female conditioning, from the belief that her value is in her utility, from the fear of being too much or not enough, from the idea that love means self-sacrifice. A queen individuates by shedding these false layers. She sorts out what is hers and what was merely imposed upon her. She returns to her essence. This return is not an easy journey. It takes courage. It requires you to question relationships that are comfortable but suffocating. It requires you to break patterns that have existed for generations. It requires you to face your own fear of abandonment, your fear of loneliness, your fear of being too much. But on the other side of that fear, something precious is waiting. You. Your full, unvarnished, powerful truth, A queen does not fear solitude because she understands a fundamental truth. To belong to no one but yourself is not a punishment. It is freedom. She chooses connections where her integrity is celebrated, not negotiated. She doesn't stay out of fear of being alone. She stays because the connection nourishes her growth, honors her truth, and mirrors her essence. This does not mean a queen is perfect. It does not mean she never doubts, never wavers, never feels fear. Queen energy is not a flawless facade. It is the willingness to be present with your own vulnerability while simultaneously holding your boundaries. It is the ability to be soft without dissolving, to be strong without being hard, to be open without losing yourself. A queen knows that true strength is not the absence of vulnerability, but the capacity to be vulnerable without betraying herself. She can show her wounds without giving up her dignity. She can ask for support without surrendering her sovereignty. She can love without losing herself. This is the queen's alchemy. She turns pain into wisdom, wounds into clarity, and disappointment into discernment. You might recognize now that you have had moments in your life when you were already the queen. Moments when you spoke your truth, even when your voice trembled. Moments when you walked away, even when a part of you wanted to stay. Moments when you refused to make yourself smaller. These moments are not lost. They live inside you. They are the proof that you know the way back to your throne. The question isn't, can you? The question is, will you? Will you stop negotiating your truth? Will you stop mothering grown men? Will you stop fighting for your own visibility? Will you demand that the emotional weight be shared? Will you leave the rooms that are too small for your soul? Each of these decisions is a coronation. Each one is a homecoming. Remember that this sovereignty is not a one-time achievement. It's a daily practice. It's a moment-to-moment choice. You will have days where the old patterns of people-pleasing or self-doubt resurface. The goal is not perfection. The goal is awareness. A queen is not a woman who never falls off her throne. She is a woman who notices when she has fallen and gets back up with more compassion and less judgment than the time before. This is the practice, not to be flawless, but to be relentlessly, tenderly on your own side. And here is the final, most liberating truth. You don't have to wait until you are perfect. You don't have to wait until you've healed all your wounds. You don't have to wait until you are fearless. You can begin right now, with one small boundary, with one honest statement, with one courageous no, with one dignified retreat. Queen energy is not built in grand gestures. It is forged in 1,000 small acts of self-respect. What if today you started to treat yourself like a queen? Not by putting on a crown or playing a role, but by asking yourself, what would a woman who honors her own dignity do in this situation? What would a woman who truly loves herself choose right here? What would a woman who protects her essence say right now? These questions are your compass. They will guide you home to your throne. You are invited to go deeper. This is just one fragment of a much larger journey. If these words are resonating in you, if they've touched something that has been dormant for a long time, then let's stay connected. Subscribe to this channel for more insights into the female soul, the psychology of relationships, and the quiet power of the inner queen. Share in the comments. Which of these 5 sacred boundaries resonated the most? Where do you recognize yourself? Where are you beginning to reclaim your crown? Your voice matters. Your journey matters. And sometimes speaking it is what makes it real. I read every comment and I am here to witness your truth. Let's walk this path of returning to our inner sovereignty together. Your throne is waiting.